Today, security teams are rapidly adopting frontier large language models to scan massive codebases and identify hidden vulnerabilities. In traditional vulnerability discovery, the objective is straightforward: conduct a broad search across an entire repository to locate isolated, localized defects. Understanding malware requires a completely different approach. It is a reasoning problem under partial observability. Malicious logic is rarely contained within a single, easily identifiable function. Instead, it is actively hidden, dispersed across asynchronous states and framework boundaries. This creates a critical failure mode for frontier coding agents. Because they are designed to prioritize code coverage, they often encounter partial, fragmented pieces of evidence and immediately translate them into overconfident behavioral claims. Highly capable base models and massive context windows can ingest millions of tokens, but without a structured harness to explicitly verify their claims, they are unsuited for accurate behavioral attribution. Consider a real-world Android malware sample designed to intercept SMS data and transmit it to an external server. The sequence begins when an SMS receiver, acting as the initial trigger, extracts the sender information and message body, packaging them into a distinct request. Instead of sending the data immediately, the program places the packaged request into a background queue for later execution. Sometime later, a completely separate thread, acting as an HTTP server, pulls that data from the queue and executes the network transmission. For static analysis tools, this creates a major blind spot. There is no explicit caller-callee edge connecting the initial SMS interception to the final HTTP network sync. If you point an unconstrained language model at this code, it will typically trace the execution to the enqueue operation and stop, failing to connect the SMS content to the final network sync, or worse, it will invent a connection without any actual proof. Isolated static facts are insufficient here. An automated system must reconstruct how these dispersed program fragments interact, and it must demand concrete, execution-relevant evidence before making any behavioral claim. Researchers at University College London developed the Malaika framework to solve this attribution problem through a methodology called tri-grounded agentic reasoning. The first constraint layer of this methodology is semantics grounding. Feeding an entire decompiled application into a massive context window dilutes the focus, burying the execution reality under thousands of irrelevant code. Malaika restricts the agent's view, exposing only specific static analysis tools, such as targeted function summaries and call graph traversals. When the agent identifies a suspicious API call, it uses these tools to query the surrounding program context step by step. This context-adaptive exploration enables the system to actively recover behaviorally relevant links that remain invisible in a standard static call chain view. Semantics grounding anchors the agent strictly to concrete static facts, preventing it from hallucinating operational bridges that do not exist in the actual program structure. The second, central constraint layer is domain grounding. Professional security practice dictates a strict operational rule. The generation of a hypothesis must be entirely separated from the verification of evidence. Malaika splits the model into adversarial roles. The explorer investigates targets and constructs a tentative hypothesis. The reviewer then conducts an independent audit for concrete evidence. If the explorer cannot prove the link to the network transmission, the reviewer rejects the hypothesis, demanding further inspection. Only localized findings that survive this strict verification process are allowed to propagate out of the loop. This adversarial multi-agent structure forces the model into a conservative, evidence-backed analytical posture, directly eliminating the overconfident behavioral claims common in generic coding agents. The third and final constraint layer is knowledge grounding. Relying on a language model's internal parametric knowledge to map observed malware actions to known adversarial techniques introduces significant security risks. Because a model's internal training data cannot be externally audited, it frequently produces outdated or entirely fabricated technique mappings. Malaika solves this by requiring the agent to query an external dense retrieval index of MITRE ATT&CK techniques. Crucially, this external query is strictly permitted only after concrete behaviors have been observed by the explorer and validated by the reviewer. Knowledge grounding ensures threat attribution remains tied to verifiable intelligence based on confirmed behavior, rather than superficial similarities hidden in a model's weights. The framework concludes with a final operational stage. The x-axis represents model capability, while the y-axis tracks system reliability and auditability. As the chart shows, generic LLMs map high on capability but low on reliability, whereas Malaika's verified workflow maps high on both axes. As artificial intelligence enters high-stakes security analysis, simply scaling model parameters and context length is insufficient. True reliability is determined entirely by the structural, grounding-aware harness surrounding the model.